What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's JohnnyVTV live in the middle of the MLB postseason on this Tuesday. It's absolute mayhem. Join with me, my co-host for the day, Nick Durst. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Not as good as you, though. All those big-time appearances with Rick Kamla on Better Sports Network. Big time now.
Dude, it's happening. I love it, man. Rick Kamla, just true professional, great dude.
Did he follow you on Twitter?
He did. He followed me on Twitter. It's been a blast going on with him, man. I didn't go on with him last week because of the hurricane situation, but so far twice in 3 weeks, it's really going well, and I'm pretty much on with him every week, either on a Thursday or Friday. It's a blast, dude. I always have a ton of fun with Rick. He's the best, man. True professional. Love talking sports with him. But Nick, before we get into the NFL, we have MLB going on. So the Phillies just won. Their bullpen, in typical fashion, almost blew it gigantically. They were up 7-1. And then in the bottom of the ninth, Matt Olson hits a 3-run tater to make it 7-6. Zach Eflin survives. The Phillies survive Game 1. Gigantic to win in Atlanta when you have Wheeler and Nola to try and close out games 2 and 3. You're at least going to go back to Philadelphia, tied 1-1. The worst case scenario. Where are you heading with this MLB postseason?
Well, I honestly don't care at all whatsoever after Sunday night. I was there. I got to witness the Mets do what I thought they were going to do, which was not show up for Game 3. They did. Some questions about Musgrove, but better luck next year for the Mets. But it appeared he might have been having some sticky stuff. We'll see. But right now, I'm really just anybody but the Yankees is who I'm hoping for here. I mean, that's got to be the thing for me. Right now, I'm going to say that I'm going to go with an upset in the AL. I think the Guardians are going to knock off the Yankees because the Guardians pitching is, as you would say, butter. Didn't give any runs to the Rays. The Yankees, their main problem in the postseason, other than Garrett Cole, is the fact that they can never hit. So I think the Indians are going to be able to blank the Yankees. And because they 1-2, that's big. They'll probably get Bieber on short rest for Game 2, most likely, to come back to face the Yankees. And I don't know, Garrett Cole, he needs to pitch good. Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble. So I think the Guardians are actually going to knock off the Yankees. Right now we're doing this. The Mariners are ahead. I do like the Astros in that series. So I think the Astros will go to the World Series. On the NL side, the Phillies, maybe they could use somebody like David Robertson. Oh, he hurt his calf. He was jumping in celebration. Unbelievable. So, I don't know. I don't like the Braves at all. So, I wouldn't surprise me if the Phillies pulled this off here in this series. However, I think the Dodgers are going to just steamroll whoever they play, and they're going to be heading to the World Series, and we're going to get another rematch of the Astros versus the Dodgers.
All right, well, let me jump in here for a second because, first of all, let me just say this. I can't stand Justin Verlander. I hate him. He picks today, of all days, to finally get absolutely rocked by Seattle. And he couldn't have done this earlier, like I said, like I just mentioned. He couldn't have did this a few weeks ago to give Dylan Cease the odds-on absolute smash play for the Cy Young. Because if Justin Verlander did this in the regular season, 6 earned runs, his ERA is in the mid to low, is like probably 205, 210. And it's Dylan Cease's award. No question about it. So the fact is, I can't stand it, but let's call it what it is. You know as well as I know. Joe knows. Me and him were all in on the Mariners. We talked about it in March that I believe this was a team that was going to make a deep run. They were a 90-win team last year. They stayed put at the deadline, and Jerry DiPoto did not make the same mistake. I didn't think it would happen. Julio Rodriguez, before the season started, I didn't even know if he was going to be up. So I couldn't have counted on him, but just based off the roster they had. Mind you, their 2 best players weren't even on the roster at the time, and Luis Castillo and Julio Rodriguez. So I believe the Mariners all.
And they got nothing from Kelenic this season.
Nothing. And I feel so great that the Mariners are doing this.
I'd love to see them go to the World Series.
Listen, I had them in the AL with Toronto this year, and we got robbed of a bad matchup
Meaningless.
because Seattle shouldn't have played each other in the wild card round. I think that was
How do you feel
horrendous.
about the wild card playoffs? Having watched it for the first time ever this weekend.
I like it so far. I like it. I hate that I got hosed. We all got hosed on a bad matchup because Tampa Bay Cleveland, it's a battle of great pitching, but it's boring. It's a snooze fest.
Right. 15 innings.
Tampa Bay should have played Toronto, and Seattle should have played Cleveland. That's what should have happened. And then Seattle would steamroll Cleveland. Then they would steamroll the Yankees. Toronto would beat Cleveland. Toronto would probably beat the Astros. Then we would see the two of them in the ALCS as I predicted preseason. And I said, take a ticket on Seattle to win the AL because they have a real shot, and they are putting it to the Astros, a team they had a lot of trouble with this year. And
right.
Justin Verlander has had a lot of trouble, or has had a lot of success, I should say, against Seattle this year, and he's getting destroyed. So, I took a ticket on the Astros to win the World Series this morning because I'm like, Toronto was the only shot that somebody beats them in the AL. I still think that's the case, but
right. So we both agree the Yankees and Guardians, they're going to get smacked by whoever they play in the ALCS.
Yeah, I think the winner of the series wins the American League. And as Yuli Gurriel just hit a home run and make it 6-3, if Verlander could stop giving up runs, which, to me, this sucks because this is my head versus my heart. Financially, the Astros are more profitable because long story with my Mariners to win the AL ticket. I can't really get into it. Long story there. And I also took Houston in part of a parlay today to win. And then obviously the World Series. But emotionally, I hate Houston. I hate Verlander. I love Seattle. They were my team all year. I've been on them since day one. Anybody knows that's been listening to this program, wrote them up and everything. But one real quick before we move on. Philadelphia was my team to win the World Series preseason. I had them beating Toronto, the rematch in 1993, Philly and Toronto. They take care of business narrowly, 7-1 lead, almost completely blew it. I live bet the Braves plus 3.5, by the way. So luckily that managed to come home. But I think it's going to be the Phillies. I believe they could beat the Dodgers. My belief was it was going to be the Phillies over the Dodgers in the NLCS, and they showed that they can beat them. And now, bro, Nick Castellanos, my boy, this was one of the reasons why I loved the Phillies coming into the year. He does nothing all season. I don't know where this guy was. Comes in today, 3 for 3 with 3 RBIs in his first at-bat, makes arguably the game-saving catch in right field. Castellanos, the error machine in the outfield, making a game-saving play potentially with the chips on the line. If they're getting this production from this guy, everybody else can go home because Castellanos, Harper, Real Muto, Schwarber, dude, it's going to be a tough out. And now that Philly won game 1, this is just a gigantic swing for them with the chance that if Zach Wheeler throws a gem as he's dominated Atlanta this year, they could be going home to Philly up 2-0 with Aaron Nola to close it out game 3.
So what we've seen so far through a game and a half of the divisional round is that the teams that just sat for 5 days off, they're rusty. So maybe it's advantageous to play in that wild card, get some momentum going, stay hot instead of having to get hot. And that's, we'll see how that plays out with this first year at the wild card. I personally, I'm not a huge fan of the wild card series. I think it's diluted to have so many teams in the playoffs. That's just me, but I'm sure in a few years it'll be expanded again. But right now it looks like if you're playing in that wild card, you keep that momentum rolling. Whereas the teams that had 5 days off, which they don't have 5 days off at all, not even in spring training, they're a little rusty. They got to get back into the groove of things.
So it's funny you say that because I actually, so far, like I said, I like this format thus far. I think it's interesting. It's very NFL-esque. And I think listen, we could talk about adding the extra team. I think that's good for the game. I was tired of seeing that playing game where 2 teams go 162 and their season comes down to 1 game. Like I hated that. I thought it was stupid. I like what we have here. And I think the fact that the season is now decided in a wild card, and don't get me wrong, it's 162 games now. You have 3 games to decide it. It's better than what it was maybe, I think we should move to at least 5-game series for every playoff game, or 7, when it's appropriate, like
Right.
the conference series, the championship series, and the World Series. But you hit the nail on the head. What happens a lot of times in football when a team has a first-round bye? They come out flat.
Yep.
And obviously, football, you might come out in the first quarter, the first half, and you make adjustments. But in baseball, you might come out in the first game. Guys haven't been playing, pitchers especially. And I said this to a friend of mine today. I was like, the reason why I like the Phillies, even though Max Fried has dominated them thus far this season, he hasn't pitched in 12 days. Pitchers are weird creatures. You're used to going on 5 days rest. Sometimes when you have to go in on 4 days rest, you are not the same. When you have to go in on 6, you're not the same. When you have 10 or 12 days off, combine that with the fact that this is postseason. It's different. It's not the regular season. So I think that definitely plays a factor in the teams that stay hot. It's not football. The biggest thing is like your best pitchers are going to have to wait a few days to get back to the rotation, but your offense isn't tired. These guys aren't getting hit like you are in an NFL game. So I think absolutely playing the game and that wild card series, you actually do have a little bit of a benefit if you can emerge victorious.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing so far, at least in this first game. I would have preferred if they just kept it with the old amount of number of teams, and then 2 out of 3 for just the top 2 wild card teams. I think I like that better, because having it this way now, if you're a division winner, there's always going to be one division winner who gets screwed, has to play in the wild card. And look how it turned out for the Cardinals. So it's kind of unfair to them. But, that's the way it is. That's the way it goes. And we'll see how the rest of this shakes out.
I mean, yeah, but the NFL, you got teams that are playing in wild card weekend that are the 3 seed. I think the 2 seed now.
2 seed
right?
plays now
the 2 seed. Oh, right, they did change it again, right? Yeah, the 2 seed plays
team.
Now.
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot. Yeah, bro, everything's changing so much. I can't keep up sometimes. But all right, we'll keep talking about the MLB on the next episode, obviously, because we're going to be going through the entire month of October. Thoughts on week 5 in the NFL? What did you think? It was a very strange week. Some of the worst officiating I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm calling for people to be fired. League investigations. The corporations, they have the refs in their pocket making influential calls that are deciding point spreads and game outcomes. What'd you think here?
Yeah, I don't know what a roughing the passer is at this point. It's kind of crazy that some of these things are getting called, but it's just an overreaction of last week with what happened with Tua. So it'll balance itself out, I think, eventually at some point. My thoughts on week 5 is that there really isn't, that many teams this year that you could say, wow, they're dominant. Like, this is a team that could be in the Super Bowl. Like last year, we had like 6-7 teams where we're like, the Rams could be in the Super Bowl, the Bucks could be in the Super Bowl, the Packers could be in the Super Bowl. We think the Bills, the Chiefs, there's a lot of teams we thought could get it. This year, it's kind of looking like, well, we'll see what happens this week between the Chiefs and Bills. That person will be in the driver's seat of the AFC. And the NFC, it's kind of like, do we really trust the Cowboys and the Eagles? The Cowboys do this every year pretty much, that they're good. They cruise through the regular season, then they always end up losing in the first round of the playoffs. The Eagles have only, gotten to the Super Bowl and won it once. New head coach, we'll see. The jury is still kind of out on Jalen Hurts. So I don't know. There's not that many teams that I could say like, oh, this is like a dominant team. Like this team is a tier above. A lot of, we always say a lot of parity in the NFL, but I think this year it's just a lot of mediocrity, except for like the Commanders and the Panthers, who absolutely stink.
So my thing is here, I think aside from the officiating, I think we are seeing a lot of parity in the league right now, in my opinion. I don't think one team truly stands out as the clear cut, yeah, they're the winner. We only think that because the Buffalo Bills were anointed the best team to ever play the game, despite not even having stepped foot on the field. Like, they didn't even make the championship game For whatever reason, for whatever destiny of their own making last year against Kansas City, they didn't even make the AFC Championship game. They haven't even made a Super Bowl with this current roster. And I said it was going to be a problem, probably not so much in the regular season, but come the postseason, I've been saying it all summer, the loss of Brian Daboll is going to be a glaring weakness come the big moments. The regular season, it's not gonna matter as much. I think Buffalo is probably, an 11-win team, coming in, 10-11 wins. I think they're a little bit better than I expected they would be in the regular season, but they've beaten some bad teams. Like they beat the Rams, who it turns out is a really bad team right now. They beat the Steelers, who are a terrible team. They shouldn't have beat the Ravens. They got lucky to beat the Ravens. They lost to the Dolphins. So if we look at it, Buffalo doesn't scare me. They're not that good. And the fact that they lost Micah Hyde and they have injuries in the secondary, that's a big problem because that's the identity of the defense. Kansas City, I'm not a big believer in. I wasn't all year. I think it's the Chargers' year, but they're suffering some bad injuries. The Eagles are interesting because their schedule is the easiest in the NFL, except for maybe the Giants. So I think there is a path for them to be 14-3, be the 1 seed. And that's all fine and dandy. You could get into the playoffs, be the 1 seed, get the bye. But I think realistically, if teams get healthier, and a team like San Francisco could give them a lot of problems if San Francisco gets in. I think a team like Tampa Bay, as usual, will still give them problems if they get a little bit healthier. So I'm not ready to write them in. I still am going to have to stick with my Chargers as being the Super Bowl team that I'm picking because nobody's showing me anything else. Like the one thing that the Chargers that worries me, their head coach is an absolute moron. I can't stand guys that solely rely on analytics and trends and have no feel. Numbers cannot tell you everything. There's a human element. You have to have a feel. You have to have your finger on the pulse. If analytics told Brandon Staley to stand in front of an oncoming train, he would do it. So that's the one big thing that truly worries me about this team because as we've seen, coaching matters. So I'm not writing in everything here for LA, but I still have to stick with my guns preseason. I still think this week is going to shape the AFC a lot with the Bills-Chiefs matchup.
So I think another thing that's going to shape the Super Bowl picture is, does Christian McCaffrey get dealt, and where does he go? And who signs Odell Beckham Jr.? Those are two potentially, difference makers as far as the team's going to the Super Bowl or not. Who gets those two? I think right now, I would imagine the Bills are going to get at least one of them. And then we'll see. Maybe the Rams try to get somebody else. Those are the two spots I think kind of make the most sense. Or maybe Rodgers goes to Odell and was like, I really need you here. Like, I have no shot without you. So, because Odell's in a great spot. He could basically pick wherever he wants to go for the 1-year deal just to get the championship. And then if he's good the rest of the season, he'll cash in next year. McCaffrey, a little more tricky, obviously, because you got to trade for him if the Panthers even want to do that. But I think they're probably going to trade him. They're going to tank to get a quarterback at this point. Where do you see those two guys potentially going?
It's interesting. So I think McCaffrey, Buffalo's reached out. LA is interesting. Who is LA going to trade? They mortgaged their farm, the future.
They have no
How
picks.
many draft picks do they have left? How many draft picks does Les Snead have left to ship out for players? I think, he's creative. Maybe he could come up with something. I feel like the best case scenario right now for the Rams is to try and get Odell back. But the fact is, if LA keeps stinking up the joint, if they're not even in, they have to at least be in contention to win their division, probably come week 9, week 10. And if they keep losing in bad fashion, Odell's not going to want to go there. So be like, all right, listen, I loved it last year. I got my ring. I'll go somewhere else. So I think with that being said, the Rams are in a bad position to be trying to make trades. They have to test the market. Odell's the best they can hope for. The Bills, sure, could they get McCaffrey? Maybe. I don't know who they will give up. They have a lot of young talent, but they also have guys that are paid. Like they paid Diggs, they paid Allen, they paid Von Miller. They don't have. I don't know how much they have. They have to really probably get rid of a first-round pick.
I mean,
to get
definitely.
McCaffrey.
I think if they give a first-round pick, that might get the deal done, because it's very rare you're going to see an in-season trade player for player. So it's all going to come down to picks. But I don't know who else is going to be interested in. I mean, people will be interested in McCaffrey, but it's going to be
So the
who's
problem,
going to get the first-round pick.
the issue with McCaffrey is not only do you have to trade for him, you have to probably give up a haul, whether that be a first and a third, a first and a fourth. Maybe Carolina will even take a second and a third because I highly doubt. I think he has to get paid. Now, did he get paid? Well, it's not my head.
They paid him like 2 years ago.
What they have to take on his contract then? Whichever.
Right.
What do he get? I forget off the top of my head.
Well, at the time, he's the highest paid running back in the league.
What's he making? Do you know?
I have to look it up. But
while you look it up, whichever team trades for McCaffrey, they have to take on his contract. Right. But obviously, GMs are creative enough to
sign a 4-year, $64 million contract. I don't know. I got to see what the guarantee is, though. It's a lot of money.
Okay, but still, the point is they're gonna, whichever team gets him is gonna have to continue to pay him.
Yeah, he's on the Bucks through 2025 with a base salary for the next 2 seasons after this at $11.8 million, and then last year is $12 million.
I could see the Bills, man, if they want to make a play for him. The thing I think what happens if Buffalo gets him, he's not going to be a 20 to 25 touch guy. They're going to try and keep him fresh. They're going to rotate him with Singletary, James Cook.
A lot of catches. That's about it.
Yeah. There's a lot of catches. I think there's less touchdowns, fantasy purposes. I think it's bad for fantasy if McCaffrey's in that offense because I would think Buffalo trades him just to keep him fresh and be a dominant force in the playoffs. Right. But I could see some stuff like that go down. I think McCaffrey's probably on
the Bills' offense could certainly use him, especially when it comes to the playoffs. But you mentioned Dable. I mean, how good of a head coach has this guy been so far? I mean, he's the total difference maker because the Giants obviously got Barkley, who's the best player in the league right now. Other than that, they're depleted with talent. A lot of injuries. Dable comes in, he does a smart thing. He hires Wink Martindale to be the defensive coordinator. They're giving fits to everybody. He seems so prepared for the games. So maybe you're right. Maybe he was that secret ingredient for the Bills' success.
Yeah, 100%. So that being said, talking about the Bills, they have the highest leverage game of the 2022 season, most likely. Laying 2.5 right now at the Kansas City Chiefs next week. Don't forget, in this spot last year, when the Bills went to Kansas City in the regular season, I think it was week 6, maybe week 5, the Chiefs were 3-point favorites at home. They got blown out. Their doors were blown off, lost by 18. There's some 2.5s out there, some 3s. It's kind of in between. This most likely closes at 2.5 because a lot of people are going to say, Jesus, Patrick Mahomes getting 3 at home against anybody. So I think it's probably a 2.5 close, most likely. What do you make of this game here, Nick?
Well, did you see the game last night? I mean, the Chiefs narrowly escaped with a victory over the Raiders, who look like they're an absolute disaster. They should have kept Rich Bisaccia, who led them to the playoffs. And the Chiefs probably should have lost, but they had Kelsey, so that was a difference maker. So for me, I mean, that was a close game, and I think the Bills are so much better than the Raiders. So I know it's tempting, taking Mahomes with the points, but I got to go with the Bills, even though they're the favorites here, -2.5. I think they're going to win by at least 10 points. I think they're that much better than the Chiefs. We mentioned earlier, the Chiefs don't really seem like they got it this year, but, I eat my words every year with them. I say this is not the year. They end up getting to the AFC Championship game every year. Maybe that's more of a product of their division the last few years. Obviously, the Broncos stink. So we'll see. I think the Chargers are the best team in the division, just like you. So for this game, I'm going to go with the Bills. I think they're going to win by at least 10. And I'm going to take the over in this game. These are not two teams that are necessarily about defense. And the 2 times they played last year with the playoff game in the regular season, obviously the over hit as well.
Okay, so I'm with you on the over. I think this probably comes home. I can't imagine. I have to imagine at least 95% of the tickets and everything is going to be on the over this week across every different sports book. Aside from the fact that, people know these two offenses, these two quarterbacks can score. Nobody wants to root for an under with Patrick Mahomes v. Josh Allen in an MVP leverage type of game. So I think 53 and a half, I'd probably say it's good. So about 55 and a half. I could see this close at 56, with the way people might bet it. Right now, I don't have a good look on the spread. I think the Bills are going to win. And the reason I think that is because you just alluded to it. And ignore the fact that it was a divisional game where the Raiders gave a good punch to the Chiefs. They really did. But I just think matchup-wise, this is going to be an issue. Last year, the Bills didn't have Von Miller. And we've seen teams really give Kansas City fits and the offense fits when there's a premier pass rusher dominating. Von Miller looks like that guy right now. And he's creating opportunities for other guys along that offensive line. He's making it so Buffalo doesn't necessarily have to blitz. He's creating pressure. Look what Max Crosby did. Look what Chandler Jones did last night. They made Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable. Sure, Mahomes looked good, especially in the red zone, but there were still a lot of drives that stalled because Crosby and Chandler Jones were the difference. So I think that could create enough of a scenario. And they gave up 29 points to the Raiders. Should have been 30. Devontae Adams ran all over them. I think Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis are going to be able to do the exact same thing. I really don't understand why Kansas City decided, okay, Devontae Adams is one of the best receivers in football, one of the best receivers in the last 5-10 years. We're going to single cover him. The first drive beats him for that touchdown. Then they had a weak safety help over the top. They were too close together, in my opinion, not properly spaced. I have to go back and watch the all 22. But now you have Diggs and Gabe Davis with Josh Allen, who, like Mahomes, if there's nothing there in the pass game, he'll pull it down himself. There's nobody on the Chiefs defense that scares me. Honey Badger was the difference maker, the X factor. I think Buffalo wins this game, but I hate counting out Patrick Mahomes, especially at home. I think for now, I'll just take the Bills on the money line, and I do think the over comes through.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think Von Miller is going to be a huge difference for the Bills, especially in the playoffs.
100%. And unfortunately, I hate this because I have a couple MVP tickets, Herbert, Lamar, and
Nothing on Allen.
No, because it was plus 700 preseason, and I'm like, let's just see what happens. I thought they were going to get cracked by the Rams, and that would have dropped them a little bit. And I'm not big on taking plus 700 in the preseason with so many good options. So many things could happen. So this is a high leverage one. Lamar Jackson lost the leverage spot to Josh Allen. And the fact is, if the Bills go and beat the go and beat the Chiefs, it's looking really, really bad because
Herbert's right there passing wise with Allen, but Allen's got more of the rushing stuff, so that's going to factor in big.
Yeah, it's not over by any stretch, but Allen will be the rightful favorite if the Bills go into Arrowhead. Allen puts up a modest 250, 2 touchdowns. Keeps the gravy train rolling, beats the Ravens. So he's taken so far all the big players out. I don't know if the Bills play the Chargers this year.
This is it. Yeah, so this though, if the Chiefs blow down the Bills, Mahomes is going to be the favorite.
Yes.
He's already got 15 and 2, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So big game for the quarterbacks for personal stuff too here in this game.
100%. This is a big leverage game for sure. The next one here, we got Sunday night on NBC. We got the Dallas Cowboys at the Philadelphia Eagles laying 5.5. Sorry, that says 155 for some reason.
I'll take the Cowboys plus 155.
The over-under is 42.5. Nick, what do you make of this one right here?
Well, here's the thing. These are two teams that I'm not really buying at this point as I think like a legitimate, but the winner of this game is going to be cruising here to move down and probably win the division. I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win this game. So obviously taking them there. And I think the reason why is because Dak Prescott isn't playing from what I hear so far. And Cooper Rush is going to just keep it going here. And this is what they needed, the Cowboys. They needed somebody like Rush, who is like pretty much a game manager. Does a little more, though. We'll give him some kudos, some credit there. I think what was hurting the Cowboys recent years is that, Dak, they always call him different plays with him out of the pocket. He's getting hurt, and that's impacting the game. Cowboys, their bread and butter, usually when they're being successful with this type of regime, has been about running the ball, doing some play action stuff. So I like the Cowboys in this because I think Cooper Rush is actually better for this Mike McCarthy system than Dak Prescott. But there is no QB controversy. When Dak Prescott's back, he'll be the quarterback. I'm going to actually go with the under in this one. Eagles, we know, have a high-powered offense, but how are they going to deal with Micah Parsons? I mean, this guy is ridiculous. He's going to be all over the backfield. Jalen Hurts is going to be running like crazy. I know the Eagles have a better receiving core, but I'm just thinking this particular game here, the fact that the Eagles are undefeated, that's making me lean more towards the Cowboys in here. I think they're due for a loss. They've kind of been getting by just a bit as of late. So I'll go with the Cowboys to win this game, and I'm going to go under, even though it's a pretty low number.
That's a very, very interesting take on that. So what I'm looking for here, aside from any matchup, before I get there, what do I always say? Always take the road dog getting 5 or 5.5 points. Yep. Blindly bet it. And it would be undefeated this year had the Seahawks not got hosed 5 different times that impacted the call. And they only lost by 7 despite that. Blindly bet it. But now with the matchup here, you hit the nail on the head. Is Cooper Rush a better quarterback than Dak Prescott? Absolutely not. Is he better for this system? He might be. He's very Alex Smith right now. He's very Jimmy Garoppolo-esque. He's a captain of the ship. I've been saying it for weeks. Not a high ceiling, not a low floor, steady Eddie. He's making everybody else better around him by just simply facilitating. He's making a couple plays when he has to, when asked upon, but he's letting Tony Pollard, Zeke be solid. The receivers are doing all their job. The line's been pretty okay for the most part. The defense has been all world right now. And Dallas is just playing a simple formula. Like, I feel like in the past they got too cute and they tried to do too many different things and act like they're the Cowboys from 1995. Like, they have simplified the game plan. And look how it's worked. Cooper Rush is 5-0 straight up ATS as a Cowboy starter in his career. I mean, it's not a coincidence. And I said this last week. This is why I think that the Cowboys were going to cover against the Rams, who, by the way, they're now back-to-back road dog 5.5 in 2 spots. Dallas is. The Cowboys are a carbon copy to a similar degree of the San Francisco 49ers. Play great defense, run the ball, quarterback make a couple plays when needs to, just manages the game, good receivers. They're a carbon copy. So I think with that regard, they're going to give a tough time to Philadelphia. The Cowboys have given a lot of problems to the Eagles in the past, and I understand that the Eagles, they're a great team, and they're eventually going to lose. But if you notice against Arizona, and again, this is another game I had the Eagles -5 against the Cardinals. They should have blew them out. But a couple stupid penalties that cost them points or the opportunity to add on, they take their foot off the gas in the second half. Sirianni pours it on in the first half, but then they let up a little bit in the second half, or at least the last couple of weeks they have. So I think this is a spot where we're going to see Dallas have an opportunity to win this game, but I definitely will back them to cover. Philadelphia is bound to lose at some point because they're not as good as their record suggests. I don't know if it's this week, but I don't think they cover. I think they fail to cover 2 weeks in a row. If I was looking to back any Eagles cover, maybe first half, maybe.
All right. You mentioned Jimmy G. I mean, I want to talk about him for a second because how lucky is Shanahan that Trey Lance got hurt? Because Jimmy G is going to save the season for the 49ers. They were going nowhere with Trey Lance at quarterback, in my opinion. And now with Garoppolo, they got a legit shot to get back to the NFC Championship game.
That's why they didn't trade him. I know the whole thing with his shoulder. He didn't really have any value. Nobody wanted to take this guy, but there were some discussions in the middle of the summer that he was going to get traded, that there were suitors in place. But I think Kyle Shanahan, in the back of his mind, knew, why would I trade this guy? Even though we have Trey Lance, and he pretty much staked his career on the Trey Lance pick. And I think, honestly, he got bailed out. I think he got bailed out of his Trey Lance experiment because he got hurt. Now he can go to the owners and say, listen, like, the guy I wanted got hurt. He only played a half of football, or a game and a half of football. And he kept Garoppolo because he knows what he had in this guy. So I think with that regard, San Francisco is a good bet right now. I think they're 7-1 or 7-1, 8-1 to win the NFC. I think it's a very good bet because this is the type of team that can beat Philadelphia. This is the type of team that can beat Tampa Bay. This is the type of team that can beat Dallas, the Vikings, Green Bay. I think the best bet right now for anybody to win the NFC is the San Francisco 49ers. So I would absolutely look at that. They're going to be a tough out, man. I hated the Niners last year because they were a problem to the Rams. This year, I would really buy in on San Francisco because they're going to be a problem so long as they stay healthy. Nick, moving on here, we have the Arizona Cardinals laying 2.5 on the road to the Seattle Seahawks. Another game where this is teetering between the 2.5, 3-point margin. I imagine this closes at 3, maybe 3.5. What say you?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Cardinals to win. I think they'll also cover. Eventually, this Geno Smith magic's going to run out. People are going to get tape on him. They'll figure something out to slow him down there. Do I believe the Seahawks are a team that is going to continue to score 30-plus points per game? No. I think the Seahawks are average at best as far as their talent is concerned. I've never been a fan of Pete Carroll. I think the Cardinals will win this one. I think it could, we're looking between 3 and 7. So right now, 2.5, jump on that bet. And it's going to be an ugly game, I think. Obviously, the Cardinals are missing Hopkins greatly. The offense just is not the same without him. So it's not really that explosive offense we saw last year. So Cardinals to win this one. It's going to be kind of ugly, though. I think I'm going to go with the under, which is crazy to say considering how the Seahawks have been playing offensively. But I think I'm going to go under on this one just because I think the more this team is in a system under Geno Smith, the more tape there is. And then that's how these coaches always figure things out.
I'm on the other side here. I'd probably wait a little bit because I think people are going to bet this. I think Arizona is going to be a very public play this week. Very public. I would think, like I said, this thing gets out to 3. Keep the points if you want. Bet the 3. I think Seattle wins outright at home. Seattle lost Rashad Penny. It sucks. This kid's been awesome. He came on strong. He's been dealing with injuries his whole career, especially leg injuries. Wish him well. But they got Kenny Walker. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett are 2 receivers that can win 1v1 in almost pretty much any given week. The line has been protecting Geno. Geno looks amazing, and kudos to him. Quick story about Geno. In 2013, I went to the NFL draft. I was in my second semester as a freshman in St. John's. Decided to go to the draft, went to the first round. It was electric. Then I'm like, all right, it's the weekend. I don't have class. Like, what can I do? And I was like, nobody goes to day 2. Let me go. I could go to day 2. It's the next couple rounds. Do you know, day 2, Geno Smith was the only player to show up in person to the draft, aside from Darius Slay, who got drafted by the Lions. Mind you, don't forget, coming out of West Virginia, Gino was talked about, expected to be a first rounder.
Yep.
It didn't go his way. He was very disappointed, not only because he wasn't a first rounder, lost out, he was a big drop, but he lost a lot of money because when you're drafted outside the first round, there's millions of dollars.
Yep.
It's a big swing. So, but the kid stayed, walked on the stage, and to me, that said a lot. Listen, I didn't think he was that good at West Virginia. Goes to the Jets. He was terrible. I met him at Under Armour in 2014. A nice guy. But the perseverance from then to now is just something that, as a person, I love seeing that. Geno Smith has fought his whole career, and it's paying dividends finally. I love seeing it. I have Geno as comeback player of the year. I took a big ticket on him. I took it at 20-1 before last week. Now it's 6-1. I think Seattle has the formula to beat them here, and I want to take the Seahawks. I think they're going to win. It's going to be a sharp play for me and for a lot of the smarter bettors. So Seattle +3, money line, +2.5, whatever you're getting at. This is going to be the team that proves victorious because, listen, man, I don't think Seattle makes the playoffs, but they have a lot of interesting football left. And they got hosed last week against New Orleans. And one more thing, I don't want to run long here. You've heard me say there is not a person in the betting industry that has a better read on the Cardinals than I do. I know what they're going to do before they do it. Even in a bad beat, a weird game last week, that was the first game where I missed on what Arizona did, whether to win or lose, cover or not cover. And I think 9 consecutive weeks dating back to last season, dating back to like week 12, week 13 of last season, that might have been the first time since then that I was on the wrong side of a Cardinals game. And it was only because of fluky weirdness that went on when Eagles easily should have covered. So I'm going with Seattle, baby. Geno Smith stays hot, keeps that MVP bid alive.
Well, Geno Smith, of course, also ended Eli Manning's Iron Man streak as he got the start in Seattle. So maybe he's comfortable there. And he's just another example of that the Jets just destroy any quarterback. Him and Darnold, absolutely horrible. Sanchez fizzled out. But that curse might be broken because I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Zach Wilson so far this season.
Absolutely, man. So with that being said, let's keep this even here. The emerging player of the night brought to you by Emerge Sports Group, our boy Jay Hen, a new host at Better Sports Network. Shout out to our boy Justin Henry, one of the best in the business. Nobody works harder. He's a father, but he always makes sure he has plenty of content coming out. Great, man. We're happy for you, bro, and can't wait to have you on and discuss everything. I'm going with Geno Smith, the aforementioned quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. The guy's playing out of his mind. He's leading the league in completion percentage. He's leading the league in passer rating. He is leading the Seahawks as one of the best offenses in the NFL through 5 weeks. Who would have guessed this in the right mind come July? Geno Smith was arguably not even going to be the starter. He wins the job in camp, and he is playing as a top 5 quarterback right now. He is playing better than Tom Brady. He's playing better than Rodgers, Stafford, Cousins, probably anybody not named Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts,
Herbert?
maybe Justin Herbert. I think he's playing better than Lamar Jackson through 5 weeks. You could probably make a case that he's top 5. Top
How about
6
Jared
is the
Goff?
absolute lowest. Yeah, Goff had a bad one last week. He had a real stinker.
True.
So it's time for the Gambling Guinea's best betting trend. We talked about it before. I'm on Dallas Cowboys +5.5 because obviously the metric, but matchup-wise, the Cowboys have what it takes to hang with the Eagles. A money line upset would not surprise me. The Eagles are due for a loss. They're due. And they've had trouble with Dallas, the last couple of seasons. Just not sure when it's going to be, but I think the trend here stays alive at 5.5. Nicholas, as we're wrapping up the show here, give me your final thoughts.
All right, 2 thoughts. Number 1, the Bucs. It's time to admit you missed Bruce Arians. Todd Bowles, not a good clock manager. Kind of cost us some games where they got some delayed games and stuff. Bucs, to me, they're just missing something. They're definitely missing Gronkowski, and they're definitely missing Coach Arians. That's the first thing. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this Giants-Ravens game this weekend is huge for the Giants. If they're able to somehow win this, then they get a stretch where 5 of their next 6 games after this are against teams that are under 500. So it's strange to say, but the Giants could potentially be a playoff team this year. And, they've gotten pretty much nothing out of a lot of players, but Saquon Barkley, he's been incredible. So again, if they beat the Ravens, then they got a pretty good stretch where they got the Jaguars, Seahawks, Texans, and Lions 4 weeks in a row. Then they got the big game on Thanksgiving versus the Cowboys, which would be interesting to see that. And the following week, they get to play the Commanders, and you're into December. They should probably win at least 4 of the next 6 games. And that's going to put them at 8 wins. Could be looking at the playoffs for the Giants, which is very shocking coming into the season.
So just quick thought on your 2 points. I 100% agree. I thought Bruce Arians not being at the Bucs as the Bucs head coach was going to be a problem because he did more than just help them on the field. He created structure. Todd Bowles, to me, has always been a bridesmaid, never a bride. The guy's failed as a head coach before, and he's having trouble with one of the best rosters in football. I understand they're dealing with a ton of injuries. I get it. But you still have Tom Brady. You're having trouble. You could barely close out the Falcons. You had to have the worst roughing the passer call, maybe the second worst, after last night with Derek Carr, to bail you out. I'm not saying Atlanta wins the game, but they have a shot. They're within one possession. They have a shot to come back. So I 100% agree there. And then the Giants, they're exciting, man. Saquon looks healthy. It's great to see. Daniel Jones is taking progressions as I thought he would. Now, remember, coming into the season when they hired Brian Daboll, I said, guys, look what Josh Allen got. Look how we transcended from Brian Daboll's guidance and wisdom. And I didn't say Jones and Allen are in the same league even, but we could see that type of transcendence because of Daboll. I do believe that they're not a playoff team yet, but they will be. I mentioned preseason that I think they're a 6 or 7 win team this year, which obviously they're probably going to be higher than that, barring something expected, because I thought they were going to lay a lot of building blocks for next year, like Jacksonville. I mean, they're ahead of schedule at the moment.
They had for some reason, Vegas knew they had a really high over-under. I think they were 8.5 this season. I think anybody who didn't take the under on that win total.
8.5 or 7.5.
Maybe it was 7.5. But even
but
so, I'd be still going under.
Regardless, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised they're good because I expected this. I just didn't expect it this year.
Right.
But this just goes to show the coaching. But for mine, man, I have to say, look, we need to clean up this officiating. It's getting brutal. I'm not saying this just because I have money on it, but it's deciding outcomes. It's deciding a lot of things. And the more that we have sports betting integrated into these games and these leagues, it's costing people a lot of money. And it's horrible for the NFL ratings, and they don't do anything. If you're making calls like that are that poor and you're doing it in bulk, you need to be disciplined. NFL referees are the only people, I think, in the world that are not held to a standard at their job. If you make constant mistakes bad mistakes at your job, you're at least going to have to get sat down and talked to, or there's some serious consequences that go on. But it seems like, guess what? He missed all these calls, or he made all these bad calls. You know what? We're going to throw him out there on prime time next weekend. Or these guys get to call the playoff games and make probably 6 figures. Where are we going?
They make 6 figures, and this is their part-time jobs. They all work other jobs.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. This needs to be addressed. This is a bad omen. This is bad for the game, and I've had it. And I'm tired.
How do you not know they're not doing exactly what the commissioner wants them to do?
I don't know, man. You know what? I really don't know, but it's worrisome because if this is the new age of the NFL, we got problems, man. Like, I stopped watching the NBA years ago. I don't bet on the
Oh,
NBA,
it's
but I stopped
unwatchable.
watching the
It's
NBA years
unwatchable.
ago because of this reason. And look how it turned out. The NBA had an official who was betting on games he was officiating.
Right.
He was impacting calls. And you think he was the first person to do it? No. You think the NFL's innocent in that? No. This is why people say games are fixed.
How
This
about
is
your?
exactly
You know,
why.
it's crazy. We got. How about your guy on the Falcons, Ridley? He gets suspended for the year for placing a bet. Meanwhile, I'm sure if he walks in his facility, there's a million like FanDuel or DraftKings posters like right in his face. So it's kind of hypocritical, if you ask me.
100%. And like, listen, don't get me wrong. I understand that there has to be a line drawn in and some kind of integrity check. But, bro, a year suspension. I mean, it's more of the fact that
It's more than Jacoby. It's more than Deshaun Watson got.
Well, that's always a slippery slope because, one was proven guilty, the other one it's speculative, but obviously it's a lot worse.
Yeah.
Like what Watson was allegedly did was a lot worse than what Ridley actually did. So that's why I'm not defending it, but this is what I'm saying. How gambling, like, it's great. I love it. I'm a huge bettor. I've been a bettor since I was a kid. But the fact is, when we have league officials and people are supposed to be the voice of reason and neutral, where it seems like it's slanted, this is a problem. And people have said this for years. It's not, but this week was just a microcosm of what we've been saying. People say the NFL's fixed. How do you think that the lines are always so sharp? Like, sure, bettors move the lines. Like, bettors are the ones that causes books to move the lines based on what they bet. But typically the opening lines are usually pretty spot on. There's a reason why. I don't care how much probability and analytics you put in. You have to know something. You have to know that a referee is going to call something in favor. I believe that. I am half a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's outrageous and it needs to be addressed. I'm not asking for a lot here. Just stop making stupid calls that are impacting the game. Seahawks Saints was brutal. Raiders Chiefs last night was brutal. The Tom Brady roughing the passer, brutal. So I'm just asking for a little bit of help here from the NFL to create some fairness. That's all I'm asking. But anyway, sorry for going long-winded. I just got very heated about it this weekend. I lost a lot of money. I was on the wrong side of all these officiating calls. But even if I wasn't, it's not right, and a lot of people don't want to see it. So,
well, Johnny, you put out your weekly taste video with NBC Sports Edge. Halloween's coming up, so I think maybe you should dress as a referee for that week's video. Put on some black sunglasses, get the cane, and do your video as a blind referee. I think the fans would love that for Halloween.
I might. You know what? I have to think about what I want to do because I haven't really dressed up for Halloween lately. I was never like, what am I going to do?
Right.
I'm going to go out to a bar dressed up. Like, yeah, it's all right. I feel like nowadays for the Instagram age, for the adults, sure, you might go dressed up to a party or whatever, but nowadays everybody's dressing up in 5 different costumes and it's all for Instagram. You'll dress up as like a pirate, post it on, I dressed up as a pirate on Thursday, and then on Friday I was a I don't know, you were Netflix.
Johnny, do you do DJs for Halloween? Don't they reopen for Halloween for one night?
No, I never did. I closed the books on. Almost only one time after the summer was over did I go back to DJ. I went to DJs 2019, a couple months before COVID, for the Christmas or the New Year's party. Late December, gas. It was absolute electricity in the air. I'm thinking about dressing up as Tony Soprano, though. I'm not sure. I got to get a bathrobe. Maybe Paulie Walnuts. Get some spray paint in the hair. Because I have the sweatsuits to back it. But
yeah, that'd be good.
Anyway, Nick, appreciate you coming on the show in a pinch because Joe Calabrese, my normal new host, is at the Rangers game, and in typical fashion, him and his cousin need to leave 7 hours early.
They had to fill up the car with some diesel gas.
Yeah, exactly, right? So
His cousin Mike is moving to Tampa this week.
I know. I saw him in Tampa actually when I was there 6 weeks ago. We were both at the Rays game, talked about it. I think he's moving to St. Pete actually.
Okay.
Kind of funny that he's a Tampa guy. But Nick, appreciate you coming on. Be sure to follow us. I'm at _JohnnyVTV. He's at Nick_Durst. Everybody, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much. May your week be filled with winners.